Hey guys, Bart from TST Industries here. I have a new TST Garage episode for you. Here in front of me is the 2020 Kawasaki Ninja 650, one of our project bikes. One of the guys here that works with us bought this, and we've been progressively going through it and putting some really cool parts on it. In this episode, we're going to concern ourselves with these OEM levers. They are actually adjustable. They are much better ergonomically, but still leave a lot to be desired for people like me and possibly you if you're watching this video. For that reason, we will be mounting the Womet-Tech Shorty racing levers on this bike. What you see here is the red adjuster variant. We actually sell this as a standard color combination, and we sell these separately. The adjusters sell separately in different colors, so you can actually customize the look of your levers to your liking. We have a separate video showing you how to change the adjuster portion on these levers, so you can rely on that for clear instructions. The set of levers for this bike comes with the brake and clutch side. The installation is fairly straightforward. I do have to say that the clutch side is a little bit more convoluted than other bikes that I've done because it actually has to be rotated, but I'll show you those steps in detail so you don't have any issues mounting this yourself. I do have to say that going from the stock to these guys, there is a clear change of mechanical advantage of the lever. It feels like a softer pull in the beginning and then gets a little bit progressively harder, and that just enables you to have finer control over the end of the travel here. On the brake side, it's a similar feel, but you don't notice it as much as on the clutch side. You have 6 levels of adjustment here to get this customized for distance from the bar. Like I said, this is mostly an ergonomics type of upgrade. If you don't feel comfortable with these guys, the new Womet-Tech levers will probably enhance your feel on the bike. For riders like myself, these are an absolute must. If you guys agree, you can find these at tstindustries.com, and in just a moment, I'll be presenting you with how to install these on this bike. Let's get going. I'm going to start by cracking loose the perch bolts. I'm going to use a 5mm Allen to do that. You don't need to loosen them too much, just enough to get some rotation here. I'm going to remove this cable management device, replace it later. So here you see one of the screws that I loosened to make the perch be able to rotate. There are 2 on this clamp. Now we have the ability to rotate this up. I'm still binding. I think I need to go a little bit looser here. Okay. Now we're going to loosen the clutch cable. Typically use a small flathead in the slit to get it loosened up, back it all the way out, and then move my adjuster in pretty much as far as it'll go, and then just back up this part, the inner part that catches the cable, to align with the slots here, and then I'll remove our cable from the lever. Now I'm able to move this whole perch up and expose the nut that I will be taking off. Now there are many ways to do this. We could actually take these 2 Phillips screws out, take the switch body off, and have clear access to this 10mm nut with a socket. But I think it's easier to remove fewer parts, especially when you have these tiny little screws in here with a Phillips head. Those tend to strip out. I don't want to mess with that, so I'll just use an open-ended wrench here and just turn that nut little by little, and be patient and have fewer parts moving around. If for some reason you push this through, it'll pop out of its captive hole here. There is a hex hole that holds the hex head in place and keeps it from spinning. If you pop that out, it'll start spinning, so just make sure that that's bottomed out from the top down. Once this Fuji nut lets go of the locking mechanism, it's really easy just to take it off by hand, push up on this, and when you remove the lever, make sure you hold it together. If this bushing comes out, this separates and a spring flies out. Make sure you don't get yourself in the eye. Now we'll need to take this bushing out to install our new lever in there. So we'll have to do that in a controlled way. So let's grab this bushing out of here. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to hold these components together. They actually move about each other, pivoting on that bushing. Once we squeeze that out, it's going to want to shoot out the spring. You can look in here, there is a spring in there. I like to keep these guys together with a zip tie. If you're saving your parts or if you're going to be selling them after dismount, and this is a good idea to keep them together. Now we have this guy, and it looks like it's sustained some water entry, and the water mixed with the grease. Maybe some dirt got in there. We're going to clean that off. Make sure we're starting with a clean surface. I have my grease gun here. I recommend any water resistant bearing grease. I like the stuff that is synthetic and pretty thick. And make sure that you pack in the little groove that's in this component. And then we're going to insert that. And then I'm just going to put a little bit on the inside. I really like my controls operating as smooth as possible. So all the pivoting contact surfaces get greased, including this large black anodized surface and this one here. And grab this, go back to the bike and finish the mounting there. So back to the bike here, we're just going to slip the lever into the perch, making sure that that bushing doesn't come out. And over here, just be careful not to strain this button. Your reed switch button can actually be strained if you get under it and start putting pressure. So keep track of where this thing is. Make sure you don't hurt it. We'll throw the pivot bolt through. Make sure it bottoms out in that captive hole. And now we get this Fuji nut back on. I'll just get it on as far as it'll go by hand. And then grab my open-ended wrench and complete this tightening here with that tool. All right, you want to get this tight, but not too tight. This is pressure cast aluminum. If you do crush it, you'll crush it against these surfaces and then it won't pivot very well. You won't have good clutch action. So you want to make sure that you're tight enough that you don't have too much slop and not too tight so that you haven't prevented any of the motion. All right, that looks pretty good. Now I'm going to get our clutch cable back in. There's a bore here in that surface that the cable pull goes into. Comes down the slot, making sure that all these adjusters are lined up slot wise. And that's in there. I'm just going to turn it half a turn, adjust it later. Now this perch is broken up into the perch and the clamp. The slit of the clamp and perch has to be aligned with the top punch mark on the bar. And then we'll start tightening this down. If you guys want to do this by the numbers, I would suggest you look in the factory service manual for proper torque. Typically M6 screws going into pressure cast aluminum somewhere around 8.8 foot-pounds of torque. I typically just do these by feel and then check if they move. That's pretty good here. Now I'm gonna adjust the clutch. I like to leave just a little bit of play and make sure that as the bars go through the full left and right travel, we don't have anything tightening up too much, because then at those maximum deflections, you would actually be exerting pull force on the clutch. This looks good. Lock down the adjuster. Okay, now I've immobilized it, and it's time to set my distance from the bar. I have pretty big hands, long fingers, so the maximum setting is really where I like it. I usually go to 5 or 6. You have 6 different levels ranging from this much distance to this much distance. It's really up to you. I recommend going around, riding for a little bit and checking out all the different settings and determining what works best for you. I'm gonna keep it on 5. That's a good starting point for me. I'm gonna hop on over to the throttle side of the bike and we'll do the brake. Let's now remove the brake lever on this side. This is gonna be done by the removal of this 10mm nut. You could either use a box wrench, open-ended, or whatever you got. There's really no obstruction behind it, so we could just get a tool right on there. This is not a locking nut, so once you crack it loose, it just comes down by hand. The nut is meant for the purpose of locking down the pivot bolt that turns in from the top via a slotted screwdriver. This just comes out very easily. Once this comes out, brake lever comes out very easily. And on this side, there's no real big fuss. We basically just replace the new lever into the master cylinder. What I do want to do is clean up our pivot bolt, clean up all of these surfaces here. I'll put new grease in there. The master cylinder piston surface also. A little bit of dirt on it. I'm going to re-grease all of that stuff. It's all looking good. Let's get our lever aligned. There is a reed switch for the brake here. Make sure that you get good engagement without any forces sideways on that switch. And now using our slotted screwdriver, we will just turn this in until it bottoms out. I like to get it pretty tight here. And get the lock nut on from the bottom. I'll bottom it out by hand. And now, holding the pivot bolt from the top against rotation, I'm going to tighten down on this lock nut. Very nice. That's pretty much it to this side. As far as mounting goes, I just like to clean it up really nicely so that the grease that got pushed out doesn't attract dirt, grime, and debris. Looking good. Now on this side, I think it's fairly critical to get your adjustment pretty comfortable before you go ride. This is your main safety device on the bike. You can go fast. Without this, you can't stop. You could have issues because of that. So make sure that you get this bar to lever setting to where you know that you can pull it to its full extent no matter what. And then once you ride it, you want to experiment. Go one setting this way, one setting that way, and find out what will work best for you and make this the best for your size hand. That's pretty much it here. I do have one more component that I need to replace on the clutch cable. Is that cable routing device that I took off earlier. And that's it. We are done. Just gonna go over it one more time with the rag, make sure nothing is sloppy, and we'll be done. Looks like in about 5 minutes, we performed some ergonomic magic on this bike. I really do like the change in feel that these levers bring to this machine. Just sitting up here, playing with the levers, it feels proper. I think you guys will agree. So in combination with the high-end billet materials that Womet uses and the awesome CNC machining technology that they've employed to make these parts, they actually designed a really well-rounded feel to these. They are shorter than stock, but they can actually receive 3, even 4 fingers. I typically use 2 on the clutch, 1 on the brake, but that's really up to you guys. I'll leave that up to you. If you like what you see here, check out tstindustries.com. We have these parts available for sale along with crash protection components, fender eliminators, taillights, all sorts of really cool stuff. I think you'll like what we have to offer. tstindustries.com, see you there.